Hello friends, let us now learn some important points about the burns. In the burns, first we will have to learn about the indication of referral to a dedicated burn center. First, partial thickness burn if it is more than 10% in body surface area in children, or if partial burn area is more than 15% of body surface area in adults, then we will have to refer the patient to dedicated burn center. Or if there is chemical or electrical burns present on palms, soles, genitalia, face, burns associated with trauma, comorbidity in the elderly, or like diabetes mellitus or uremia in children with specialized emotional care, and if there are full thickness burns, all these should be referred to a dedicated burn center. Then classification of burns are classified into 4 degrees. First degree or epidermal burns. Example, skin burn. These include painful erythematous lesions without blisters and heals without scarring in 5 to 10 days. Then we have second degree burns or partial thickness burns. These second degree burns can be divided into two types. These include these are of two types, superficial and deep. Superficial second degree burns includes epidermis and the papillary dermis. Here blisters which are painful, blanches on touch, heals without scarring within 7 to 14 days. And here dermal appendages are normal. Then in deep burns includes epidermis and reticular dermis. Here it does not involve there are no blisters, no pain, and here pain prick sensation is present. Then it appears mottled whitish with pinkish area, and here these burns will heal with scarring within 3 to 9 months, and all the appendages are destroyed. Next we have third degree burns. In the third degree burns or full thickness burns, this includes skin and subcutaneous tissue. Here there is extravasation of fluid occurs leading to formation of edema. Black colored leathery eschar is produced. This is treated by escherotomy. There are no pain or blister which is seen. No pinprick sensation is seen. Healing occurs with contracture. So this contracture should be prevented by excision of burn wound with skin grafting. Then we have fourth degree burns where there is involvement of skin, muscle and brain and bone. Then if you see in the deep burns, the elasticity of the skin decreases, and in the deep degree burns we have elasticity of skin decreases and appendages are also destroyed, whereas in superficial burns appendages are normal and elasticity of the skin is normal. So these are the main differences. These are the all different types of classification of burns. Now let us learn about the pathophysiology of the burns. In the pathophysiology, burns causes decreased radiant loss leading to secondary to increased blood flow and integumentary loss. It also causes heat loss. When there is heat loss, there is evaporation of water leading to fluid loss, which can also cause hypovolemia. Whenever there are burns, these will cause inflammation, and thus there is release of inflammatory mediators which are important in vasodilatation and which increase the permeability of capillaries, and this also causes extravasation of the fluid which will produce edema, and this will also lead to third space loss causing hypovolemia. This release of mediators can produce fever, and enzymes like hormones like glucagon, corticosteroids and catecholamines are also increased, and this will also predisposed to formation of fever. And because of all these hormones, there is decreased mucosal defenses present in the stomach, and as a result there is formation of curling stress ulcers. Next, Next, we have to learn about areas of cutaneous injury. In this, we have we have in the middle, that is zone of coagulation, and surrounded by it the green colored, that is zone of stasis. Surrounded by it we have zone of hyperemia. In zone of coagulation there is coagulative necrosis, as thus the tissue is irreversibly destroyed, leading to cell disruption. In zone of stasis there is viable and non-viable tissue is present, and this occurs due to moderate degree of insult. Here there is decreased tissue perfusion, which will later slowly progress to coagulative necrosis. It is associated with vessel damage and leakage. Then the last layer is zone of hyperemia, where we see vasodilatation, and here only viable tissue is present. So healing occurs from this zone only. So in zone of coagulation you are going to see the dead tissue, whereas in zone of stasis you are going to see viable tissue and non-viable tissue both. In zone of hyperemia we are going to see only viable tissue. Then we are going to learn some important points about the burn size. Rule of 9. Rule of 9 is given by Alfred Russel Wallace. According to him, he has divided our body into different areas. Head, he has given 9% of burns. If there are burns in the thorax, they were given 18%. Burns in the upper limb were given 9%. Burns in the lower limb are given 18%, and burns in the genitalia are given 1%. We will have to add these percentages according to the sites where the burns are present in the individual, and then we will have a percentage, the final percentage, which is the total amount of burns that the person has. Then these percentages are almost similar in children also, except there are some differences. So in the children, if we see in the head especially, the burns account for 18%, whereas in the thorax, upper limb, back, lower limb are all back and genitalia are almost similar, and in the lower limb in the child it accounts for 14.5% each. Then this rule of 9 is not accurate in children. So as a result, new formulas have come up. Burkhouse formula, which is burn size in children. Then Lund and Browder's chart, which is the best and most accurate method than Burkhouse formula in estimation of burn size in children. For estimation of smaller burns, we can use area of open hand method, or estimating splash burns, or mixed distribution of burns. So for estimation of smaller burns we can use this open hand method. Then let us now learn about the fluid resuscitation. In the fluid resuscitation, first venous access. In adults we will have to give ideal site is vein of hand or antecubital fossa or neck. Saphenous vein cut down has been used in the past, but it is very difficult to access. It is the peripheral line is preferred over the central line, and CVP monitoring can also be done in burns patients. Then IV fluid resuscitation. Indications include, if we give IV fluid to all the children who have the total burns who has the burns thickness more than 10% of total burn area, or if the burn thickness is more than 15% of total burn area in adults, then we give fluid resuscitation. Fluid of choice in adults, it is ringer lactate, and in children it is dextrose normal saline. Other fluids like normal saline, hypertonic saline if burn shock, or fresh frozen plasma, or human albumin can also be given. If colloids are there, then they can be given for after 24 to 36 hours. Oral fluids can be given without having salt in it. Then we have certain formulas for finding out the required resuscitating fluid. We have Parkland formula, which includes 4 into body surface area into percentage of burnt surface area, and this is the total requirement of water in ml for 24 hours. So if So we are going to calculate the total requirement of fluid by multiplying 4 and body surface area and percentage of body weight and percentage of burnt surface area. So we will get some ml of fluid which is required, and if we half of that, and half of this fluid should be given in 8 hours from time of burns, you should give this in 8 hours, and then next half fluid should be given in next 16 hours. In these first degree burns are not included. So for example, if we take 50 kgs man with 50 percentage of burns, so the formula is 4 into body weight into percentage of burnt surface area. So 4 into, here in this question 50 kgs man, so 4 into 50 into percentage of burnt surface area is 50, that is 4 into 50 into 50, that is total 10,000 ml is required for resuscitating the patient for 24 hours. So among this 10,000 ml of fluid that is required, only half of it, that is 5,000 ml is given in 8 hours, whereas the other 5,000 ml is given in next 16 hours. Okay. Then the next formula is Brooks formula. This is to calculate the crystalloids and colloids. Here 1.5 ml per kg per percentage of total body surface area of crystalloids are given, along with 0.5 ml per kg per percentage of total body surface area of colloids are given, with 2 liters of free water. Then the next formula is Galveston formula. This is for children, pediatric formula. Here we give 5,000 ml per meter square of total body surface area plus 1500 ml per meter square of total body surface area. Then monitoring of fluid resuscitation. For monitoring fluid resuscitation, the best indicator for tissue perfusion is urine output. Urine output is the best indicator for tissue perfusion. Then minimum urine output after adequate tissue perfusion, if you see, after adequate tissue perfusion, minimum required urine output is 1 milliliter per minute in adult and 0.5 to 1 milliliter in children. In cardiac dysfunction patients, we will have to do transesophageal ultrasonography and then USG line is put. So maximum percentage of surface area is always taken as 50%. For example, in the question, if 70 percentage of body surface area is given, even then you should take the body surface area as 50% only. This is to prevent the volume overload in the patient. Then we have fluid of choice in electrical burns. In electrical burns, fluid of choice is normal saline, and the urine output that should be maintained is approximately 1 to 2 ml per kg per hour. Then we will learn about some most commons. Most common cause of death in burns is asphyxia at site. That is most common cause of death at the site in burns is asphyxia. Most common cause of early death is hypovolemic shock. Most common cause of late death is sepsis. Overall, most common cause of death in burns is sepsis. Then in the sepsis, most common organism responsible for sepsis is Pseudomonas. Then now let us learn about the danger signs of airway burns. Danger signs of airway burns include burns involving the head and neck and face, burnt nasal hair. This also includes carbonaceous deposits present in the sputum or hoarseness of voice. History of burns in a closed room, like electrical intubation, which is safest. Then if there is any delay in the burns, then edema can occur, and as a result it can lead to intubation difficulty, and then we will have to do immediate cricothyroidotomy is done. Then what about the care of burn patients? First, in the care of burn patients, in the early management in the burns, you will have to stop and drop the patient to the ground and then roll him, and then you will have to take the patient to the hospital. Normally, uh, normally tap water at 15 degrees Celsius, which is the best temperature. With that tap water we can irrigate the burns for 10 minutes, effective only if done in 2 hours. Then we should never use ice or cold water, as it can increase hypothermia, because it can cause cutaneous vasoconstriction, and as a result it can cause ischemia and extend the thermal damage. So if there are first degree burns on the body, then there is no need to treat them. Superficial second degree burns can be treated by topical ointment, and deep second degree burns we can use dressings. Third degree burns we'll have to excise the skin with grafting should be done, and fourth degree burns flap reconstruction should be done. Then topical applications. First, silver sulfasalazine can be used. This is actually most commonly used, and this has soothing effect to the person. This silver sulfasalazine has broad spectrum antibiotic prophylaxis against Pseudomonas and MRSA. So it has no eschar penetration, but this is most commonly used. Second, it is silver nitrate 0.5%. It also has anti-pseudomonal action. Side effect of silver nitrate is blackish discoloration of furniture in the room around the patient. Then third is mefenide acetate or mefenamic acid. This can penetrate through eschar because of painful application. It can penetrate through eschar. It causes painful application. Side effect is it can cause metabolic acidosis. Fourth, silver sulfadiazine and cerium nitrate. This is used for full thickness burns, and this will induce hardened effect on burned skin. This is used in elderly. In cerium nitrate will boost cell mediated immunity. It will boost cell mediated immunity and forms a sterile eschar, and this is used in elderly. So these are the different drugs which are used in topical application. Then burnt wound management. These include two types. One, we have exposure method. Second, we have closed method. In exposure method, we would not put any dressing over the wound. Antimicrobial agent are applied 2 to 3 times per day, and this is used for face and head burns. Disadvantage is it causes increased pain, and it causes heat loss, and there is increased risk of cross contamination. Then we have closed method. In closed method, we can put exclusive dressings can be applied over the antimicrobial agent, this dressing should be changed twice daily. The advantages include these will decrease the pain, decrease heat loss, loss of low risk of cross contamination. But the disadvantage is it can cause increased risk of bacterial growth. Then now let us learn some important points about the dressing materials which are used in patients of burns. 1. Alginate. Alginate is used in high drainage wounds. This is absorptive but not adherent. Second, foam. Foam is used in high drainage wounds. This can absorb heavy, moderate or heavy exudate, but it is contraindicated in non-draining wounds. Then third, hydrocolloid. Hydrocolloid will precipitate autolytic debridement, and this is used for bed sores, stasis ulcers. This hydrocolloid is contraindicated in high drainage wounds. 4. Hydrogel will rehydrate the wound bed and facilitates autolytic debridement, and this hydrogel may macerate the wounds. Then fifth is transparent film. Transparent film can cause autolytic debridement, and this is not used in high drainage wounds. Then we have to learn some points about the management of chemical burns. If there is any chemical burns, we will have to first and foremost copiously irrigate the wound with water and saline for a minimum of 20 minutes. except that if there are elemental metals, we should not irrigate it with water or saline, because it can result in exothermic reaction with water. If there are phenols, then we should not irrigate it, because it causes deeper infiltration of tissues. Treatment should continue until the skin pH becomes normal, and remove the contaminated clothes and jewelry. Then do not try to neutralize chemical burns, because if we try to neutralize the chemical burns, this will lead to neutralization reaction, which is an exothermic reaction which causes further damage to the tissues. Then the next type of burns management is electrical burns management. So in the electrical burns can be of two types. One, they can be by direct current. Second, alternative current. In direct current, these include low tension or electrical appliance injury. Here, this is not enough. This will not have enough energy to cause extensive tissue destruction, because in electrical burns we do not have enough so we will see the electrical burns. Okay, I will explain it again. Okay, in the electrical burns, first it can be due to direct current or alternating current. In the direct current, these include low tension and electrical appliance injury. So this direct current does not have that much energy to cause tissue destruction, so it does not cause high tissue destruction. Why? Because here in our body we have increased, so these electrical burns have increased resistance to skin or muscle. So this will result in formation of small deep burns at the site of entry and exit. And these direct current burns are mainly located on the finger and toes. And here nerve damage and tendon damage can also occur, and that is the main thing. Then we have in alternating current. Okay, in the alternating current, this will cause tetany in the muscle, and the patient is not able to detach from the device easily because of the tetany. This alternating current is high voltage, and as a result it can easily cause muscle damage is common here. And in the alternating current, if you see, the main damage is that here the current will interfere with normal cardiac pacing, and because it interferes with this normal cardiac pacing, this will result in arrhythmias and asystole without causing significant damage to myocardium. It will also cause muscle rupture because of its high voltage, which results in rhabdomyolysis. Right now, if there are any electric burn patient, the first and foremost thing that you should do is an ECG should always be done to rule out arrhythmias. Then if there is elementary chemical, this is about the electrical burns. Then some important points about the chemical burns I forgot to explain. So in the chemical burns, if these burns are caused by phosphorus, then you can irrigate it with copper sulfate. If the burns are caused by hydrofluoric acid, then we can irrigate the burns with topical or we can give injectable calcium, or with topical magnesium salts we can irrigate the burns. Then if the burns are caused by sodium or lithium, first and foremost you will have to cover the burns with the oil, and then brush away and excise the pieces of these metals. Then if this burns are caused by phenol, then we can use polyethylene glycol wipes can be used for cleaning the burns. Then we have something called as escherotomy. In escherotomy, this is This is done for eschars which are constricting eschars. So in this, with this skin, superficial fascia and deep fascia, so in this hysterostomy we will make an incision cutting through the incising the skin, superficial fascia and deep fascia in layers. Okay, so this is called as escherotomy. This will decrease the pressure which is exerted on the wound. So these are the important points about burns. Thank you for watching.